Hey, my friends. This is Robb Ryerse. You're listening to It's Pronounced Ryerse, your weekly 35 minutes of political enlightenment. Glad that you're along for the ride. We are going to talk today about what's happening in our world, what's been happening in our country, the controversies and situations that have got us all pulling our hair out. We're going to chat about some of that. I'm going to also jump in the time capsule, jump in the time machine, and go back a few years and talk about what it was like when I ran for Congress. Yeah, that was something that happened, and we're going to talk about it. And I'm glad that you are here to be a part of this conversation. Certainly, I'd invite you to join in to comment if you're watching along live on Facebook. Ask any questions. You can also find me on social media in all those places: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever. You can also email me at robb@robbryerse.com, Robb, R-O-B-B, at robbryerse.com. It is pronounced Ryerse. That's how it's pronounced, with the long E. Nobody ever gets it right. That's how I can tell that I'm talking to a telemarketer on the phone, or anybody else on the phone, quite frankly, for that reason. And that's how it's pronounced. And this is my take on the intersection of faith and politics and the things that are going on in the world today. And I am glad that you are here with me. Let's get going. Let's begin with the rundown. Talk about what's happening in our country, in our world, in our lives. All right, America unmasked. Texas, Alabama, and I'm certain many other states across the country deciding that a couple of people have gotten the vaccine. We might as well go ahead and open back up. Those masks, completely unnecessary. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas has declared that Texas is 100% open for business. The mask mandate is ending, and all is good. And yet, a very small percentage of folks have received the vaccine. Certainly, there's reasons to be optimistic and to look forward to when this COVID pandemic is finally going to be over, but we're not there yet. Is it good to jump the gun? Is it good to declare victory before victory's been achieved? I mean, we've all seen the athlete, the football player, running down the field celebrating, and at the 1 yard line gets the ball knocked out of his hands. We all remember George W. Bush in front of the Mission Accomplished sign, right? It is reckless on the part of these governors and leaders across the country who are putting their political base and pleasing their political base, which means probably thinking about their own political ambitions for the future, ahead of making wise decisions that are in the best interest of all of the people in their states and, frankly, all of the rest of us. America unmasked. If we do it too soon, we are just going to have more unnecessary disease and death. And haven't we learned our lesson? Haven't we all experienced so much pain and heartache and difficulty over the past year because we didn't take this thing seriously and do what we need to do? And now we've got these unscrupulous leaders in Texas and Alabama and across the country just deciding that, it's over. It's over. It's done. We're good. And I want to urge you, no matter where you live, no matter if you've had the vaccine or not, keep wearing your mask. Keep social distancing. Keep doing whatever you need to do to make sure that we stop the spread of this disease. One of the impacts of the COVID pandemic has been really hard times for our economy, and stimulus checks are been, or as some of my progressive friends have branded them, survival checks, which are needed by families, by individuals, by folks all over the country. And Joe Biden told us that if we were able to deliver a Democratic Senate by electing Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock as senators from Georgia, then the $2,000 checks would be going out the door immediately. Well, it's not quite immediately. We are, 50-some days in to the Biden administration, and those checks haven't gone out the door. And listen, I know the checks out the door thing is metaphorical. Most of us get the direct deposit. Come on, that's not the point. And it's not going to be the $2,000 checks that they said. It's going to be $1,400 because they're just finishing off, what was sent with the $600 checks by the Trump administration. And I know we could parse things, but I think that's kind of a ridiculous parsing. You said $2,000 checks. So these checks aren't going out immediately. They are not $2,000, they're $1,400, and they're not going to everybody. They're going to be means tested. And the people who received $600 checks aren't necessarily going to receive $1,400 checks, depending on income levels for individuals and households. And the income levels are being dropped, I think, from $100,000 to $80,000. So there's going to be a whole lot of people, millions of people, who aren't going to receive this additional help. I got to tell you, I did not want Donald Trump to be president of the United States. I worked really, really hard to get Joe Biden elected president of the United States. But this has been a significant disappointment. What was promised, what was needed, seems like is not being delivered. And Joe Biden certainly has to work with Congress, has to work with the Senate and the House of Representatives to make this stuff happen. And that's a challenge because it's 50-50 in the Senate, because Democrats lost seats in the House. But Joe Biden has been in Washington, D.C. for a very long time, and he needs to deliver. What in the world is going on in Arkansas? I live in Arkansas. If you live in Arkansas, maybe you're asking the same question I'm asking. What in the world is going on here? In case you don't know, in case you don't live here, the Arkansas state legislature is controlled by radical right-wing Christian nationalists. The Republicans in Little Rock, who control the legislature, are dominated by the most extreme Christian leaders who want to use their power to enforce their beliefs on our state in a way that is really kind of hypocritical for what they often say. And they have repeatedly over the years made horrible decisions. And this week, they've made some more of those horrible decisions, including a stand your ground law that will no doubt increase injuries and fatalities through gun violence across our state. We have seen that in states where there are stand your ground laws, that there's an increase in gun-related deaths. And we only need to think anecdotally about Tamir Rice and and others who lost their lives. It's really, really hard and painful to think that those laws are coming to our state. And the Arkansas legislature also has passed an abortion bill that is designed to get to the Supreme Court in hopes that the Trump-appointed Supreme Court will overturn Roe v. Wade. And these Republican leaders in Little Rock want to be the ones to bring down Roe v. Wade, because guns and abortion are, and I have no doubt that at any moment they're gonna, try to pass a transgender bathroom law as well, because this is all these folks care about. They don't care about healthcare. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about the COVID pandemic. They care about continuing to push their own social agenda onto people. And it is not good, the stuff happening in Arkansas. Speaking of stuff happening that's not good, my goodness, Andrew Cuomo. I almost said Mario Cuomo. I always almost say Mario Cuomo. It's because I lived in upstate New York when Andrew's dad Mario was governor of New York, and I'm just, Mario Cuomo just kind of rolls off the tongue. Andrew Cuomo, my goodness. As the Big Apple turns, right? Like the soap opera continues, more accusations have come out beyond those made by Lindsey Boylan that we talked about last week, but more accusations have come out from staffers and people around Andrew Cuomo, in which they're suggesting that he has been a sexual predator against the women in his circle. There's also reports coming out that the nursing home COVID death scandal, it goes deeper than we first anticipated. And I just got to say, like, this is one of those things for me that there's an Icarus thing to this. There's a hubris thing to this, that Andrew Cuomo wanted to position himself as the anti-Trump. There was even times early on in the COVID pandemic during 2020 where there was conversation of like, hey, Democrats should replace Joe Biden on the ticket with Andrew Cuomo because he's leading so well in the midst of this. Andrew Cuomo even wrote a book about how great of a leader he is and was in the midst of the pandemic, at the very time that he was actively covering up accusations of sexual impropriety, at the very time that he was actively underreporting COVID deaths in nursing homes. He was basking in the adulation of people all over the country as being the leader we need. Listen, folks, we don't need loud, bombastic men. We need leadership that is humble and gracious and authentic. When are we going to learn? There are things that are more important than the D's and the R's. And it's a tragic situation happening in New York. Talking about tragic situations. One did not happen yesterday. Hey, Q folks. At what point are you going to stop believing the lies? So the Bible has, for the ancient Israelites, had these requirements that if a prophet, had a prophecy that didn't come true, you're supposed to stone him. Now, that's barbaric and difficult, but like it goes, with this idea that if somebody says that something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, stop believing them. And yet, there are some of you And there are millions of Americans who continue to believe the conspiracy theories pushed forward by this QAnon idea that like you've been taken hostage by it, and continue to believe this. And March 4th was supposed to be the big day when Donald Trump was going to come back and assume the presidency. It was the day where everything was going to be fixed, but no, it didn't happen. Do you still believe? What about Inauguration Day when everybody was supposed to be arrested, when Biden and all of his administration were supposed to be arrested? That didn't happen. And you still believe? My favorite one was back during the campaign when Q said that John F. Kennedy Jr. was going to come, was going to be revealed as not having died, and was going to replace Mike Pence on Donald Trump's presidential ticket and be this unifying ticket to bring all of America together. I don't remember casting, I didn't cast a ballot for Donald Trump, but I don't remember seeing John F. Kennedy Jr.'s name on my ballot. It was still Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Listen, how long are you going to believe the lies for? Listen, I get that you don't like Joe Biden. I get that you don't like Democrats. That's fine. I mean, it's fine. But you shouldn't allow your hatred of them and your disagreements with them to turn into your wholesale believing of things that are frankly ridiculous and absolutely not true. You've been hoodwinked. You've been lied to. And how many failed predictions is it going to take for you to recognize that? Can we talk about Dr. Seuss for a minute? Do we have to? Oh my goodness. I am so, as I've said a couple weeks ago to you, I am so sick of hearing the phrase cancel culture. I'm so tired of it. So the folks that published Dr. Seuss's books, the organization, the foundation that runs his estate, decided that they were going to pull 6 of their books on their own. They made this decision themselves because of racist and insensitive overtones and themes. And frankly, there's a lot of that in Dr. Seuss's history. And they kind of made this decision on their own that they were going to pull this stuff, pull these 6 books out of the 100 or so that Dr. Seuss has available. And conservatives are up in arms that cancel culture is rearing its ugly head again. And cancel culture this and cancel culture that. And Dr. Seuss is just the latest example. Listen, I want to say to some of my conservative evangelical friends, I grew up in fundamentalism. Like, cancel culture is nothing new. I remember when we were supposed to boycott Disney. You remember that? That wasn't cancel culture. I remember when Sandy Patty got divorced. That wasn't cancel culture. I remember all of those, I remember my friend's dad taking a Twyla Paris cassette out of their tape deck in their car and throwing it out the window as they drove down the street. Listen, conservatives invented cancel culture. So don't talk to me about cancel culture. This is absolutely ridiculous. Hey, do you not remember Farewell, Rob Bell? Like, get off your high horse and stop, wringing your hands about the doom and gloom that's coming to the country because cancel culture, because people might experience the consequences of what they do and what they say. And again, this is not anything that's been imposed on the Dr. Seuss folks. This is their own decision that they're making responsibly for the good of not just their foundation and their business, but maybe for the good of future Americans as we grow in our understanding. And frankly, there's a lot of Dr. Seuss's stuff that we should have done away with earlier. But come on, get off your high horse. Have you watched Ted Lasso yet? Now, granted, I understand that Ted Lasso is on Apple Plus, and maybe you don't have Apple Plus. Ted Lasso is one of the reasons to get Apple Plus, along with For All Mankind, which is great, and The Morning Show, which is really fantastic. And frankly, those are the only 3 shows on Apple Plus that I've watched so far. But Ted Lasso, it's like Ned Flanders meets Major League. Ted Lasso, Jason Sudeikis plays a college football coach. He coaches Wichita State to the D2 national championship and promptly gets hired as the manager of a Premier League soccer team, football team. He goes from coaching football to coaching football. And it's a story of him and his assistant coach heading over to England to lead this team in a sport that he knows nothing about, with an owner who might not be completely trustworthy, and the show is wholesome and hilarious. It's just so funny. And I don't know, if you're like me, maybe every now and then you need a palate cleanser. You need that thing that, like, okay, I'm just going to watch something that's going to make me laugh, that's going to let me relax. It's like my entertainment sorbet. Listen, Ted Lasso is the show for you. And Jason Sudeikis won the Golden Globe this past week for Best Actor in a Comedy Series for his role as Ted Lasso. It's great. It's great. What more can I tell you? It's fantastic. These are the recommendations I give you. Also, if those of you that are glasses wearers who also wear masks because you're decent human beings, I don't know about you. I haven't been able to find a mask that keeps my glasses from fogging up. It's so tremendously annoying. Here's my recommendation for you. Get on Amazon or whatever site you use to order things, and get a little bottle of anti-fog spray. I found some on Amazon and ordered it. It was here a couple days later. Spray it on my glasses, rub it in. You kind of buff it a little bit. You don't want to rub it too much. You rub it in. 6 hours of fog-free existence. I've been spraying this on all of my friends who wear glasses on, when I see them. So I recommend that to you. Our big idea for today. Hey, you remember that time I ran for Congress? I woke up after Donald Trump was elected president, just absolutely horrified. Couldn't believe what our country had done. And I had the sense that, like, I've got to do something about this. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do. But I lived with this tension, with this sense of, like, I've got to do something. The situation on the ground, the factors involved in the world have changed, and I've got to do something. And I lived with that tension for quite some time, for a couple of months, really. And it was actually Inauguration Day in 2017. I went off to work and came home, and Vanessa had listened to a podcast, and some of you have heard me tell this story. But Vanessa had listened to a podcast about an organization that was recruiting people to run for Congress. And I walked through the door and she held her phone out at me and she said, "You've got to listen to this. You've got to do this." And so that night I put the kids to bed and sat on the back porch with a cigar and listened to this podcast and was completely taken by this idea of running for Congress. I had this sense that the situation had changed. Something had happened that required my involvement. And I needed to be involved, not in the way that everybody else was involved, but in the way that would fit perfectly for me, that would be ideal for me. And so I threw my hat in the ring and launched this long shot grassroots campaign for Congress. And it was the thing that for me was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do in the moment, because what it did is it gave voice and expression and hope to people across my congressional district who were feeling pretty hopeless. And we engaged people and got them involved in the political system, and it was inspiring, and it was educational, and it was an opportunity for them to engage in ways that they never had before. And we brought people into the system who had not been, who had not had a voice, had not had a stake previously, and I'm really, really proud of that. But it also led to a variety of opportunities to continue to share my story and be involved through Brand New Congress, where I served for 2 years as the executive director, through Vote Common Good, where I'm the political director. I've toured the country on a bus telling my story, all because I had that sense that I've got to do something. And when that something arrived, I did it. Listen, Donald Trump's no longer president, and that's a really good thing. But Trumpism continues to run wild across our country. Not that Trumpism is, Hulkamania at all, for those of you that are, grew up wrestling fans who might be watching. But listen, we still need to do stuff. We need to be engaged. We need to be active. We need to be involved. We need to be raising our voices. We need to be getting educated and getting involved, because this isn't going away, and there is still so much work to do. And I want to tell you, you've got to do something. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be the public face of something, but you've got to do something. Whatever it is that fits for you, whatever it is that is right and authentic and comes from the overflow of who you are, you've got to do something. Doom scrolling Twitter or Facebook isn't doing something. You've got to get involved with a candidate or an organization. You've got to get educated. I don't know. I mean, there's infinite ways to do something. We need you to do something. And every time I think back to 2018 when I ran for Congress and didn't win, but had an amazing experience. Every time I think back, I think back with such humility at what that experience was like and the people that supported me in that. But I also look back and gain, even from my own experience, like this sense of like, okay, I can do something. You ever go to a museum and stand in a museum and maybe you can hear some people talking close by, or maybe it's somebody that you're with who says this, but it's like this common trope that comes up in a museum where like you're standing in front of a piece of art and somebody says, well, I could have done that. Well, anybody could have painted that. I could have done that. Okay, sure. But that artist did it. They did it. They did it. And we need you to do it, to do something, to be engaged, to help out, to work hard, to provide some kind of service in some way. We need you to do something because, yeah, Joe Biden's president, but the battle, I don't even like the battle terminology. Like, the work continues. The work is not done. We're not there yet, and we need you to do something. I would encourage you to throw a like and a share on this if you're watching on Facebook Live. If you're listening on Apple iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, would love for you to give us a 5-star review and write a little something about what this show means to you. Tell your friends about it on Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, all those places. Anything you can do to help out, we greatly appreciate. As you know, I'm a pastor, and so I like to end the show with a benediction. Some words that can help to encourage you and shape you and inspire you going forward. And I thought, since I was talking about that time that I ran for Congress, remember when I ran for Congress? I thought I would share with you a quote that's gotten kind of famous from Theodore Roosevelt. I first encountered it in Brene Brown's books, and particularly her book, Daring Greatly. This is a quote that is, it's called The Man in the Arena. And this is what Teddy Roosevelt said. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. My friends, may we not be those who are cold and timid souls. May we be those who are in the arena, daring greatly, doing something. Until next week, I'm Robb Ryerse. This is It's Pronounced Ryerse. Be here now.